It seems now like the further we get away from the budget deadline and the closer we get to the conventions, the crazier news gets coming out of the Capitol and the campaign trail. This week, for example, we saw lawmakers stage a sit-in in the governor's office, and a union leader say it would be offensive to the rodent to compare Governor Patterson to a rat. Time now for our weekly reflections on the news from our reporter Roundtable. This evening, we are joined by our very own Bill Carey of YNN Syracuse. He's joining us from the Salt City tonight. Also, longtime Capitol columnist Larry Levy joins us from Hofstra University, where he now serves as the executive director for the Center for Suburban Studies. And joining me in the studio is Jimmy Vielkind, political reporter and blogger for the Albany Times-Union. Thanks very much for coming in, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the Assembly sit-in, which is something really that I've never seen before.
Yeah, it was really interesting. All the members claimed that it was spontaneous. They said that they got out of conference and that they were spontaneously frustrated. And it was led by Jack McEnany, a Democrat who represents the city of Albany, and who was put, like many of the members, but particularly Capital Region members, in a very tough spot on Monday when he was forced to vote either against a budget extender bill that would have shut down state government, or for a bill that would have meant the furlough of 100,000 state workers, tens of thousands of whom live in the Capital Region. So McEnany ended up voting yes. He said he didn't want to stop some of the most vulnerable people who would be affected by the government shutdown. And so he leads this cavalcade of Assembly members, as you explained on your program, and kind of goes in and lays out his grievances with the governor. Now, the governor and Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver have not been talking. They have not been negotiating. And the Assembly members' hope is hoping to jumpstart the process a little bit.
Bill, what are you hearing, if you're hearing anything at all, from the members who are out there in Syracuse? Did they talk to you about this?
The members pressed their involvement in it, but I have to really wonder whether voters reacted positively to it. I think it just sort of added to what most people are seeing as a circus atmosphere in Albany right now. And you know, if you hear about sit-ins at the governor's office, it just, again, presses that point of dysfunction which seems to emanate from every action there.
Yeah, and it also kind of seemed like, I don't know, there was a little bit of this subterfuge getting in, and Jimmy touched on it. Jack McEnany was here. There he is. Jack McEnany was here talking to me about how the way he got them in was to give a fake tour, which he does frequently, a historical tour of the Capitol, and then he sort of slipped them all in. Now, how the state police didn't notice that all of these people were elected officials is a little worrisome. But, Larry, what do you think? I mean, was it appropriate for them to do this? Or, I mean, the governor called it a ploy.
Well, I mean, it is a democracy, so any form of civil disobedience is appropriate. But the scenario certainly raises questions of just how spontaneous this was. Outside of the Capitol, and I think Bill hit it well, down here, for example, on Long Island, I don't think people are paying attention to the specifics of it. It just adds to this image of Albany out of control or not able to control. And the yes votes, I think, again, and this is now inside baseball, is a testament to the power of Sheldon Silver to get all those guys to vote yes against the unions.
Well, I mean, also, and Jimmy could speak to this, but we both, I think we all are pretty much aware. I mean, the choice was really Hobson's. I mean, choosing between government shutdown, which nobody could do because the voters would be furious, and the furloughs, which they didn't want to do because the unions would be furious, and of course union members also vote, but it was really just too difficult for words.
Right, and so I think what we're seeing in this kind of march down to the governor's office is a shield for many people. And I think for McEnany in particular, and when I asked him about this, he of course said, no, politics didn't play into my thinking at all.
Naturally not, never. Politics in the Capitol, I can't believe it.
And there's no gambling going on either. but I think that
Liz, what
Go ahead, Larry.
Liz, what made the yes vote easier is the realization that, and as we saw with the federal judge, this is probably unconstitutional and illegal, and the lawmakers knew that they wouldn't have to live with it.
Yeah, I don't want to lose this because I think it really plays into the sort of crazy town feeling of what's going on at the Capitol. And I'd like to start with Bill on this one because it does really hit close to home. That New York 29 special election bill, what's up with that?
At this point, I don't think anybody knows what's up with it. The governor's saying that he'll come out sometime in October. to meet the mandatory prelude to announcing it so that it will be on Election Day. And the initial talk, at least, is that in order to carry this off, since it's a special election to fill a vacancy, you have to have that race on the ballot, and then next to it, the normal congressional race on the ballot, which means we would assume that there would be the same candidates on both lines. I'm wondering whether voters are going to go in and first off vote in both of them, and they could actually vote one candidate in for 2 months and another candidate in for 2 years. Who knows what will happen?
And that's to say nothing of the fact that the candidates could be different for each race.
Right.
There are
There
are different procedures for the regular congressional election. There's a normal political clock. Candidates start circulating their petitions in late June. They have until mid-July to file their petitions. If they get the 1,250 signatures of enrolled partisans in the district, they're on the ballot. There's a primary. Now, if Patterson does what he says he's going to do, and I know that this gets really confusing very fast, if he does what he says he's going to do, he will issue a proclamation, a formal legal proclamation declaring this special election after that primary has taken place and after the winners have been declared. However, the candidates for that special election from the major parties are chosen by the party leaders, the relevant county chairs within the district. So in a perfect world, those county chairs would choose the party that
the winner of the primary.
Right, but you know, as we know, this isn't a perfect world, and things could trend to an odd thing. Now, the other question is this even legal?
Right.
The Board of Elections, the Republican half of the New York State Board of Elections, is not sure that this is legal, and
they're always deadlocked on. I mean, that's part of the problem with the State Board of Elections, and you wrote a really great piece on this, but it was. To my mind, it was like, doesn't this just highlight the ongoing problem with the State Board of Elections, which is constantly deadlocked because they're evenly split between Democrats and Republicans? But Bill, before we leave this topic, because it is getting like, it's so hard to understand, what's the local reaction out there?
I think there was a lot of talk this year about a bunch of angry voters turning out, people being mobilized by that anger to go to the polls. But I'm beginning to see what I think may end up being a lower than normal turnout this year, simply because you have people looking at Albany. They see the people they've elected in the past not doing what they're expected to do. They look at their congressman down in the 29th. They think they've elected a new congressman. It turns out that he was a recreation director for a year and a half. And now they've got to come up with a new congressman. But the governor has thrown this into some kind of chaos. I'm just wondering whether we get to the point where voters say, you know, a pox on all your houses, and I don't even want to take part in all of this.
And we're moving to North Carolina.
Bill?
Right, but you know, Larry, also, and it just seems to me that it also speaks to a larger problem, which is the governor himself, and sort of this isn't the first time that we've seen sort of weird special election things come out of the governor's office. There was one in Queens that he issued a proclamation, then rescinded it, then issued it again. I mean, it just sort of doesn't help the governor while he tries to make the case that he's actually a competent leader.
Well, I'm not so sure that issues about special elections penetrate to the general public. And if anything, I suspect, I'd like to see some polling on this, but I suspect that Patterson's numbers have probably gone up because he has at least trying to seem tough. I mean, this furlough thing is tough stuff. And I think people are saying, maybe saying, and again, I want to see some numbers on this, at least the guy is trying. You know, the most interesting political story down here, which also should play out around the state, that could be a test of what Bill was talking about, are the school district elections coming up on Tuesday.
Yep.
Statewide. This could be a bellwether of whether voters are mad as hell, excuse me, and don't want to take it anymore,
That's
or
it,
if they're
you're
just
done. No more
frustrated as heck, or are they just frustrated as heck? And there's a theory that we're hearing that the worse that Albany looks, the better off the local officials will be, because voters down here will cut them some slack for having to deal with those guys.
Well, I think what I'm hearing from